at least from my time, when I was starting to go out and go to places, and early 2000s, very little was going on at that point.
Well, look,
let's.
Well, it's not dance music, so it's not
Yeah.
going to create a spark at
No,
local.
no, but this is the point. It acted negatively against itself because, like I would go out to clubs and I would go to at a metal party and I'd ask the DJ, "Hey, do you have this doom band? I'll name a doom band," and they'll be like, "No, go to a goth party for that sort of thing."
Yeah.
And then I'd go to a goth party and I would say, "Hey, do you have this band?" And then they're like, "No, that's too heavy for what we're playing."
And this is probably a nice transition into what you were going to go into, like the bands sometime. We had that problem.
Yeah.
We played to the metalheads and we were called pussies.
Yeah.
We played to the goths and they were going, "Oh my god, it's too loud." And
Stop. Let's use this as the opportunity to move on to the next section of what we wanted to talk about, which would be titled History of Doom in South Africa.
That's what I was saying. I'm going to start.
Yes, please.
Okay, history of doom in South Africa. I can only speak from my own personal experience.
So
Which-
before we start, can I get some more wine?
Yes, sure. Which,
but just do it.
let me just quickly add, I think as far as the history of doom in South Africa, we would be hard pressed to find a more authoritative figure on the subject than Malcolm Burger right here. So,
I'm going to mention some more authoritative figures in my speech.
Yes.
I stayed up all last night, preparing my eulogy. In my late teens and early 20s, the band that head and shoulders stood out above anybody else, and the one that was the most successful was VOD. And specifically, since Paul and Francois Blom joined the band, because they went from punk with Stuart to, they became a metal band that had a fucking incredible amount of doom influences.
yeah.
And I used to go watch them a hell of a lot. And I think when they wrote If I Had a Soul, which is in 2 or 3 parts, it is basically a doom song. They were never classified as a doom band, but then you look at other stuff. Black Cathedral, Funeral. They had an element.
It was very early,
very early
like, the doom
kind of
stuff. Doom stuff.
They were including a lot of doomy elements in their death metal.
Yeah.
And I think that was largely due to the Blom brothers. And as such, I used to go watch them, and I used to stand there and go. At first, everyone's reaction around me made me not want to be in a band. I was like, fuck, if that's the way people are going to react if I pick up a guitar, then fuck this shit.
Yeah.
And then I stood there one day, and they'd obviously just written If I Had a Soul, and I'm fucking jaw to the ground going, right, when am I going to buy a guitar?
And that's just not because of Dickens solo.
Fuck Dickon, dude. I love the man to death, but I can't watch him without feeling ill because he's just too good.
Yeah, that's just not fair.
Anyway, so there I am, probably a little past my prime already, buying some cheap guitar and trying to get a band together. And at the same time, you've got your own personal influences. And long story short, I've joined this band, formed that band, fucked around for about a year. And then another influential person I would like to mention, other than him showing me Turn Loose the Swans for the first time, was Jerome. Because being unhappy in a band that already sounded like Bolt Throw, which isn't too bad, I was like, I just want to do... I know it sounds trite, but when you're young, you want to emulate your influences. And then when you finally discover how to write music with your peers, then you can start discovering your own path.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make the music of my dying bride. That's literally all I wanted to do. Okay, so we started.
What year was that?
You'd have to say the beginning of anything vaguely doomified in this country. It's got to be put on squarely on the doorstep of VOD.
Yeah.
And then
let's quickly touch on timeline, since this is a bit of a
talking,
history lesson. VOD started around
VOD
85, but they were definitely not
they
Blom
were
era.
They were essentially a punk band to start with.
So when
I think when the Blom brothers came
early
in
90s.
The late 80s, early 90s, they redefined the band. And that was kind of the time I started taking notice of them.
And then what year can we say Gramlich sort of hit the circuit?
About 97, I'd say.
Okay.
It took, like I said, it took a while to find members and so on and so on. At the time, there was only one other band of our age group peers that was doing it. and I wasn't aware of any of the older bands doing it because they were much more traditional. There was a band called Elysium in Joburg who were fucking miles ahead of us, and they featured Thomas Woodruff, who went on to form Eternal Chapter.
Okay.
But they were great. They toured Cape Town, showed them around.
Eternal Chapter, sorry, that was like a more sort of like gothic
traditional
rock.
goth band. That was when Ashton had come out with his stuff. He actually produced their album, so it was very traditional goth. But they had, for a short while, in fact, I got their demo something, which is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But also pre-internet, so your correspondence with the band in Joburg or knowing what was going around was minimal.
Like basically pen pals.
But it certainly helped, because other than, doggedly trying to imitate a certain sound, we didn't have that range of influences and stuff. So we were very left to our own devices. And in those days you could go, fuck it, I'm going to do this. We're not expecting any sort of career or remuneration, so you can go at it. At best you could find an album on mail order somewhere, It's kind of isolated to the point where you could go, it was almost a luxury of going, it doesn't matter if you fuck up, as long as you follow your own vision.
Yeah.
And so we did, and we got to a point where our little demo tape was out selling fucking Bryan Adams and Celine Dion in the CD store, which is fucking awesome. Pat on the back, make a t-shirt. But then bands like Theatre of Tragedy came in the mix, and you're like going, fuck, we really need keyboards and the female backing vocal. And this is the fun story about Esther I want to tell you. Unbeknownst to Esther, she had no idea we were advertising for a keyboard player who could sing, female. She just pitched up at practice one day with Ronnie's new girlfriend, and just from that day hasn't stopped fucking talking. So much so that
story.
so we were very hardcore about practices. You practice for an hour and then have a smoke break.
Yes.
So a song, smoke break, a song, smoke break. Anyway, so she gets up in the middle of a practice room full of people that she has never met before, unannounced. We didn't ask for. We were all going, who the fuck is this anyway? And she rips this Tori Amos song completely a cappella. It was perfection. We were like, wow, this voice. And all the other dudes in the band started looking at me funny when I just immediately had gone, do you want to learn to play keyboards?
Yeah, well, Malcolm's not going to miss an opportunity.
I know, fuck that. We were advertising for a female keyboard player who could sing, and she certainly had the voice, as she proved in many years later. And they were all like, no, but you've got to go through the whole audition process. Fuck that. Do you want to learn? She goes, oh, okay. And she joined. I mean, that night we all got drunk together. We saw boobs a lot.
So yeah, that's the R18 version of this little story.
Yeah.
Dude, the thing is, I mean, you're in a metal band, no matter what subgenre, you have to enjoy the rock and roll lifestyle a little bit.
So that sort of brought Gramlich to what we could probably call like the band's like maturity, like in sound and style. Hey?
Yeah. No,
was Sebastian in the band yet when Esther was in?
No, there was a bit of a transition at the time between Frankie leaving and Sebastian coming in, and Julian leaving and Glennis coming in on bass. And that was the nice thing.
Did I ever tell you that I bumped into One Metal for Africa? And I was such an idiot actually. I remember going to the bathroom.
Dude,
and
you have to fucking recognize celebrity.
There was a queue, and I was talking to somebody. I think it was actually Rory. I was talking to, and we were talking about music, and I said I was talking about Doom. And then she was, oh no, I was talking, and I still had this whole attitude, so what do you listen to? And I was like, going black.
It should be fine now because we've got enough battery power.
Yeah. All right, we are.
Who like it?
Like baie mooi. All right, we are back in the picture.
Despite my lack of makeup.
All right, so we've sort of touched on the arrival of Esther in the band, which was cool. And I think that kind of approached close on the time where Gramlich sort of reached their maturity, as it were. But you say there was a couple of change-ups. Sebastian, tell us just a little bit about Sebastian's chapter.
Francois was the original vocalist and very passionate about it. And had one of the best death growls. For early Doom, that was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was actually quite scary how well he could do that. And then as you progress in your music, obviously as in a group, you try and improve. And he was hell bent on conquering clean vocals, which everyone will agree he had trouble with. He really didn't quite get it right, and it was his decision to leave the band because he felt that perhaps we needed that, but he couldn't deliver it. And I remember being a bit pissed off at the time because you are being set back. We found Sebastian who had a fantastic clean vocal and could do a fair approximation of the sort of more guttural stuff. And he was also a very good songwriter. And for the first time I found, except for the one or two songs with Frankie, that I was able to have someone else write. I mean, we had friction, obviously, but it probably made for something a little bit better or less one-sided. So I shared the lyric writing with him, and to a point where he took over the lyric writing altogether. So all the later Grimming stuff is his. And then when we parted, then Glynis came along at the same time as Sebastian on bass, and she was also added a different dimension. Not at all softer, let me tell you. She pounded the shit out of that thing, and she was probably the most metal person in the band by a long way. She was always trying to make us do something more extreme.
Yeah, because I kind of got to know her years later, and it's like this chick's fucking metal.
Yeah. She was all like, "Oh, it's too slow. It's not heavy enough." And we're like, "Fuck's sake," you know.
But again, having all those different elements incorporated,
and then
I suppose lent itself to that whole Doom essence again.
And then eventually we ended up with Stephen van Heerden on bass. He was a long-time friend of ours, but a particularly accomplished bassist, and he also lent then a more polished sort of aspect to it, which led us to that all unfortunate.
Sorry, I'm trying to just get the
War Insane
reference. Yes, that's right. He was one
ended
of
up
the
in War Insane
founding
with Alec,
members, if I recall.
Alec and George from Sacrifix, and him and Anton. Anyway, so we'd become a much more polished unit by then. So long story short, we lost our minds, decided to pursue a slightly more commercial aspect, kind of trying to keep the same sort of songwriting style, but not songwriting style. We were purposely adopting a more commercial songwriting style. We're trying to keep the same sound, and it didn't work. And it led directly through various associations to us folding as a band. And then a lot of us moving on to different projects. Like Ronnie and I at that time were recruited into Terminatrix, and the others, I'm not sure what the hell they did, but
they've all been around in music in some shape, form, or size.
So and to the point where we're all found our way back together again under another guise altogether.
Yes, which we'll get to shortly.
Yeah.
All right, so that sort of collapse, as it were, of what was Gramley, that was sort of around about 2001-ish.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I think then what I'd like to do at this point is, like, I know that's more or less when Biggie started getting into like the scene himself. So it's kind of like marks an intersecting point. So to continue the history of Doom in this country, I just want to hear what your experience of it was coming into the genre and into the scene.
Well, at around about that time, being 13 years old or whatever it was, I was coming into...
Battery low.
Just plug it the fuck straight in. I just want to see if it's still recording though.
I don't know. Wait, maybe I can trail it across the bar.
No.
Behind you.
But just put it behind you.
On my lap. How's that?
Well, we're still rolling though.
We're still rolling. You can go take your seat.
Sorry, I forgot my bongo drums. Because bongo drums are essential to Doom.
Yeah.
To do
Fuck.
Justin, maybe you can just take your cue again.
So around about 2000, 2001 was, being 13 years old, whatever, started to get more and more into music quite seriously, and Doom, as I described earlier, was what I found and sort of decided was my music, was my thing. And around about that age, you're starting to go out, be a bit more social in the scene and things like that. And wherever I was going, it was met with what are you listening to, or like, who's that band, and what. And I think I remember when I really started, like early on, I asked, so are there any Doom bands? And then I heard, so I can't remember who it was, told me, there was a Doom band called Grumlich that ended about a month ago. I was just like, fuck, and it was really difficult to try and find anything. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Theo was a huge influence for me in telling me about people who possibly would be interested in this genre of music, and giving me some music. But I mean, the bottom line, I was lucky enough to have two good friends who somehow also really clicked with the genre, being Rory Molyneux and Paul Kennedy. And the three of us, pretty much, we would go and we'd each download albums and share them, because we couldn't afford it or didn't know like what was out there or where to get hold of the stuff at the time. And we'd listen to Doom, and then we'd go out and say, I wish one day there would be an event where we could just flip and play the music that we liked, and was like what our preferable choice of music, and didn't really know of many people out there that were actually interested in it. And it was a big problem, you kind of, you want to identify, especially at that age, in a particular scene or group or something. And I felt like it was a little bit too soft for the metalheads and a little bit too heavy for the goths. But I mean, not to say that I didn't find friends and didn't like it, the opposite. I still do enjoy death metal and black metal and goth and stuff. It's all fun, but it wasn't my thing.
But what you're describing is there was basically just a massive void in local, call it nightlife culture, where there just wasn't an avenue. I mean,
unless of course you like System of a Down or the stuff that they play.
Sorry, how does that relate?
I'm just saying there was a void for the kind of stuff.
Yes. For like what I wanted to say is basically,
if you like more metal, you see the thing is more metal.
Like Grumlich shut down shop.
There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing, and I mean.
No, I feel bad.
Oh, you should, motherfucker.
You did this.
But I mean, at the same side, it really inspired me as a musician. I remember we had our first little Doom band. The three of us started, and purely it was because we couldn't play anything. There was no music anywhere, and that's the reason why I picked up a bass guitar in the first place.
Sounds like the same reason we started Mind Assault. There was just not that kind of music available, so we had to make it.
I did it for the women.
At least your band.
How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, at least your band went somewhere. I was just like, okay, so it's the four of us here. Cool. And recruiting members to play in a Doom band is it was near impossible.
Yeah. Dude, really.
I think someone at the gate.
We'll leave that to
at the gates.
So kind of gliding through the history again, we would say from the end of Grumlich until what point was Doom completely vacant from South Africa's nightlife sort of vibes? I mean,
I'm not sure that there's been a live band doing much.
Well, there was.
Recently, I'm aware of a band like Korax.
There was a stoner Doom band in Cape Town called Dumorgie.
Yeah, I mean,
but what year was that?
I mean, they existed, but it wasn't something that was a constant thing or a point of call. And at that point in time, personally,
it wasn't enough to jumpstart a new scene, really. I suppose is the word we can use.
Exactly. And personally, I was very much focused on the future projects at the time when they came out. I mean, that's like a recent, I think Demorge's first gig was in 2010 or something.
I forget the year. It'll be good for...
Weren't we already discussing the league and all that stuff?
So this was before that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, actually, I'm trying to remember now, to be honest. How did I meet you?
It started with the Symphony and Furnace shows, which is where you came onto our radar.
Yeah.
Where you started playing.
But
then we were like, hang about.
I know that angle, but
Hold
I was trying to remember how I actually met you. That was the thing. I mean,
It was probably some unfortunate event.
Yes.
Probably through Rory. Because
probably through Rory, I think. Yeah.
But I think we're kind of fast-tracking a bit here to the present, which we should probably then get to soon. But I just want to summarize, I don't want whoever watches this to believe that
there's fuck all going on in
the history of Doom comprises of you and you.
No, sure.
So let's touch on bands like Korax.
Yeah, I mean, Korax is a friend of mine.
And they're more recent.
They're recent, yeah. I mean, they're
the last 2-3 years, aren't they?
Yeah. Because I think what we're looking at now is, if we're backtracking the last 2 or 3, maybe 4 years, we're actually talking about a sort of consolidation of the genre back into prominence, which is exciting.
Yes.
But before we reach that conclusion with our next chapter, as it were, let's try and find out who else do we know of. We knew about Demorge, which was probably about 2008, 2009, more like, I guess. Korax cropped up as of more late. There was another Durban band, and I'm trying to think of their name. Something...
I'm not too sure.
Shit, we're gonna have to figure out who this band was.
Of course.
Yeah, but something about an ocean or.
Oh, yeah, that does sound.
Hang on, it was called the Oceans Don't Want Me.
No, that's a new band. That's post rock.
Yeah.
So. But as far as locally, at least, the way I look at it was around about 2009. And I don't want to sound like I'm saying that Doom was only comprised of the friend circle that I know, but quite a lot of people that I knew were into Doom, but were all in other different bands and in other different projects.
Yeah, didn't have any prominence in their lifestyle or their recreational.
They didn't really want to make it.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to end off that point, I guess it was. There were other bands out there in other cities and things that were trying to do something more doom oriented, but nobody knew of anything. Or nobody sort of spoke up or
wasn't really widely publicized.
Yeah, and so for the longest time, it effectively felt like the few couple of friends that that are into that sort of music and. Want to either make that sort of music or even want to listen to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think then I want to kind of bring the conversation to the present. But the present isn't just like, it's not like, boom, now. There's been a bit of a preemptive to the present. And when I'm talking about the present, I'm kind of referring that it seems we're on the verge of the genre kind of it's about to take a step back into prominence, kind of the way it did during the time of Gremlin days. Doom had it enjoyed a little bit of prominence in the social, what do you call it, nightlife?
Spectrum.
Yes. Because there was activity at that time, and it seems like we're kind of coming full circle, and that's about to close. So I think let's just jog back 2 or 3 years. To the formation of the League of Doom.
You know, I mean, you're indulging two dronkies. You're fucking sitting here, pretty much fucking breakfast time on a Saturday drinking.
What was
You know, taking time out of your fucking day.
What was the proposed name for the podcast? What Biggie?
Biggie and Boys. No, Biggie and the Bergie or something.
Biggie and Bergie.